She wasn't the kind of girl anyone saw coming. Emma Sinclair, 23, was known in her small New England town as the quiet type. She worked at the bookstore, wrote haunting poetry on her blog, and took walks at dusk. Those who knew her described her as ethereal, artsy, and a little odd, but sweet. No one thought she could be dangerous. Then came the poem. It appeared on her blog one rainy Friday morning. A cryptic free verse titled, "If you read this, I'm already gone." Her usual followers assumed it was another one of her moody pieces about loss, heartbreak, and pain. But something felt different this time. It wasn't just metaphor. There was a hidden chill in the rhythm. Lines like, "Blood beneath the daisies a silence in his throat, my love was never gentle or just perfectly wrapped in rope." It caught the attention of a true crime subreddit. The post went viral. By Monday, detectives were at Emma's apartment. They found it empty. No Emma. No signs of struggle. But in the corner of her neatly made bed was a blood-stained notebook. Inside, the first page read, "This was not just poetry. This was prophecy." To understand what led to the poem, we need to go back. Emma was born in 2001 to a librarian mother and an absent father. Her upbringing was quiet, structured, but emotionally distant. Teachers noted her high intelligence and tendency to drift into daydreams. She preferred books to people and often wrote eerie, mature poetry even at a young age. In high school, she was often alone. Her classmates teased her for her gothic fashion sense and obsession with Edgar Allan Poe. But one person didn't mind it, Noah Greer. Noah was the opposite of Emma. He was extroverted, charming, loved by all. Somehow, he saw through Emma's guarded exterior. They started dating during senior year, and from the outside, it looked like a fairy tale opposites attract story. But Emma's poetry began to shift around that time. Less about abstract sadness, more about specific torment. He holds the glass and I hold my breath, he smiles and I count the seconds, how many until I can breathe again. Were they just metaphors? Or signs of something darker festering in the relationship? March 11th, 2024, Noah Greer was reported missing. He had failed to show up for work at the advertising agency and hadn't answered any calls or texts. His parents filed a missing persons report after finding his apartment locked from the outside and his car still in the garage. Friends mentioned his girlfriend Emma had recently moved in with him. Police visited Emma's workplace. Her co-workers said she hadn't shown up in days. Her phone went straight to voicemail. She was officially declared a person of interest. What chilled investigators was what they found next. A hard drive in Noah's apartment filled with digital scans of Emma's poetry, drafts of unsent letters, and one peculiar audio file titled Final Draft. When detectives played it, they heard Emma's soft voice reciting a poem. He slept too loudly or he breathed too fast, or I wrote him a lullaby, or it was my last. Forensics confirmed it. The blood on the notebook in Emma's room matched Noah Greer. Detectives now had reason to believe they weren't searching for two missing persons. They were looking for a murderer on the run. In the notebook, each poem became increasingly disturbing. First he screamed, then he whispered, then he never made a sound. One entry wasn't a poem, but a confession. I tried to make him art, beautiful and eternal. He didn't want to be immortal, but I needed him to stay. So I carved permanence into his silence. Emma had left behind a horror masterpiece, a diary that danced between metaphor and murder. The notebook's final page? A map, a trail through the woods marked with red ink. At the end, a heart symbol. Following the map, officers arrived at a secluded spot in the dense forest near the old Millbury Trail. There, they found a shallow grave. Inside, Noah Greer's remains, bound in cloth, a poem pinned to his chest. My love was louder, but yours was louder, and now the forest sings while your bones flower. The discovery made headlines. Poet turned killer, art becomes evidence. Emma was now wanted for murder, and she was still missing. But a traffic camera near a bus stop gave a new clue. Footage from the day after the blog post went live showed Emma boarding a Greyhound to Chicago. That's when the manhunt expanded. FBI got involved. Behavioral analysts started poring over her work, trying to predict her next move. One poem stood out. The city sleeps, but I never will, not until I find her a new canvas to fill. What did that mean? Was she planning to kill again? Weeks passed. No sightings. No movement on her credit card. No phone pings. Everyone assumed she had vanished into the ether. Until her blog updated. A new poem appeared on April 9th, titled Ink Never Runs Dry. Chicago hums beneath my feet, but ghosts still follow, or I see them in mirrors and lovers that swallow. This time, IP trackers traced the post to an internet cafe in Chicago's South Side. CCTV from the cafe caught a glimpse of a hooded figure with auburn hair. It was her. Detectives swarmed the area. But by the time they arrived, she was gone. Inside the trash can, they found a crumpled paper napkin. On it, a sketch. A woman standing over a man. Blood pooling into poetry. The horror wasn't over. Emma was evolving. She was leaving behind not just clues, but art. Each one a breadcrumb. Each one more disturbing. One officer put it best. She isn't just running. She's curating. Emma's case captivated the internet. Reddit sleuths dissected every poem. TikTok users dramatized her blog entries. True crime podcasters dubbed her the Crimson Poet. Then came the first copycat. In Portland, Oregon, a young man was arrested for assaulting his girlfriend and leaving behind a handwritten poem eerily similar to Emma's. The lines: "She spoke too loud, I turned down her voice, and now she hums in silence for permanent choice." The press ran with it. Is Emma Sinclair inspiring a cult of poetic killers? FBI issued a public warning. They called Emma a danger not just in her actions, but in her influence. Yet, she still hadn't been caught. And another blog post appeared. I never wanted fans, only readers who feel, and killers who listen to pain that is real. Was this guilt? Or pride? Either way, the art was spreading. The next twist shocked even seasoned agents. A man named Marcus Hale came forward, claiming he had been in contact with Emma. They had met on a dark poetry forum months before Noah's death. Emma used an alias, but her writing style was unmistakable. Marcus shared screenshots of their exchanges. Discussions about beauty and decay, how love can become obsession, and cryptic lines like, "I want to make someone eternal, like you made that girl we read about." Authorities now had a new fear. Had Emma been radicalized? Or had she been the radicalizer? They arrested Marcus for conspiracy, but it was too late. Emma had vanished again. A break came unexpectedly. A Chicago artist named Rhea Cortez reported that Emma had attended her spoken-word poetry night. She remembered her because of a line Emma had whispered after her set. "You bled truth. I bleed art." The club's surveillance footage confirmed it. More than that, it showed Emma exchanging a journal with someone in the crowd. The man's apartment was raided. He claimed he thought it was a performance prop. Inside, authorities found a notebook with 12 new poems, each darker than the last. One stood out. Rose's red ink bled, he choked on truth, I then bled instead. But the most terrifying part, the final page listed 6 names. All were men, all alive, and all had dated Emma Sinclair. The list in Emma's journal was clear, deliberate. 6 names, all male, all connected to her past. Some were old flames, others short flings. But each had been involved with her emotionally. The names were passed on to law enforcement agencies across the country. Each man was put on a watch list, contacted, and in some cases, moved into protective custody. One of them, Jacob Linwood, had already experienced something strange. 3 nights earlier, someone had broken into his art studio. Nothing was stolen, but on his easel was a poem scrawled in red ink. "You painted my eyes but not my pain, so I painted silence down your name." The police believed Emma had been there. They began cross-referencing hotel stays and bus tickets, trying to trace her movements. But Emma was always one step ahead. Each time they caught a trail, she vanished into shadow. Meanwhile, the blog updated again. The new poem was titled "He Left, I Stayed, but Not Quietly." They think love is gentler, but mine is raw, a pen that stabs or breath that draws. It ended with a chilling line. "You left me once, but now you'll know the ink you spilled was never slow." FBI analysts now considered that her poetry wasn't just symbolic. It was tactical. They noticed how her poems mirrored the order of the names. The next in line was Daniel Ferraes, a man who dated Emma briefly during her college years. He lived in Denver. Authorities were immediately dispatched. But when they reached his apartment, Daniel was already missing. On his kitchen table, a half-finished dinner, and a Polaroid of him tied to a chair, smiling. Behind him, written on the wall in lipstick, "Smile, you're part of the gallery." Emma was creating something. A digital file posted to her blog revealed a password-protected page, the Crimson Gallery. Hackers quickly got in. Inside were 6 blank canvases, each marked with a name. Jacob's and Daniel's had begun to fill in. An audio clip autoplayed. Emma's voice, calm and slow. "Each man painted a piece of me, and now I return the favor, 6 betrayals, 6 brush strokes." Investigators believed she was documenting her crimes in real time, a morbid art installation of death. Psychologists began calling it a symbolic purge. For Emma, this wasn't about rage or revenge. This was about immortalization. And the next canvas was ready. The third name, Elias Montgomery. He was Emma's high school ex, now a Marine stationed in Virginia. He was the only one who had ended things with her. When contacted, Elias was calm but cautious. She was brilliant, intense, but there was something inside her that was bigger than all of us. He hadn't heard from her in years. But last week, he found a letter in his mailbox. No return address. No stamp. Just his name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You taught me to feel cold. So I became winter. They moved Elias to a secure military safe house. But agents feared Emma wouldn't let go so easily. She was building to something. Something catastrophic. Emma's next act took place in front of an audience. A university in Pittsburgh hosted an open MIC night for creatives. Toward the end, a woman in a black hoodie took the stage. She didn't introduce herself. She just began to speak. Love bled into the curtains, a silence soaked in wine. He called me beautiful, or I called him mine. Then she dropped the MIC and left. 30 minutes later, an art student named Louis Tran was found unconscious behind the building. A small poem pinned to his jacket. You admired my pain, and now you live it. Louis survived. But the message was clear. Emma had escalated. It wasn't just murder now. It was theater. Digital forensic teams finally cracked her backup phone found months earlier. Inside, draft poems, deleted blog entries, even self-recorded videos of her reading poetry in the mirror. One video stood out. Emma, sitting on the floor, whispering, "If I disappear, don't find me. If I hurt them, it's because they cut me open. Their words are wounds. My poems are bandages." It wasn't a confession. It was a manifesto. Analysts noted her repeated use of metaphors related to binding, suffocation, and silence. One poem had chilling detail. He said, "Calm down." I said, "Shut up." He said, "Please." Oh, I tied the knot. This was beyond artistic license. It was reenactment. Amid growing panic, a voice from Emma's past stepped forward. A younger sister, Natalie Sinclair. She agreed to speak with authorities and the media. Emma wasn't always like this. She was fragile, haunted by mom's death, dad's abandonment, and every failed attempt at love. Natalie recalled something chilling. When we were little, she used to write poems about burying dolls. She said they screamed too much. Natalie shared old notebooks filled with early poetry. Even as a child, Emma had a fixation on silencing, permanence, and burial. A pattern that had never left her. And now it was swallowing everyone she had touched. In Houston, another name on the list went dark. Matthew Collier, Emma's ex from her college poetry club. He didn't answer calls. Police arrived at his condo to find it empty. But they did find a sculpture. Twisted wire formed into the shape of a heart. Inside, a folded napkin with a single line. He broke me with rhymes, or I broke him in time. This wasn't just art now. It was horror as language. Symbolism had become her murder weapon. Each target, a verse. Each location, a stanza. The poem was nearly complete. FBI believed Natalie might hold more answers. She underwent a psychological interview. That's when she admitted something she'd been hiding. Emma once told me, "If they hurt me and live, what lesson do they learn?" It was a quote she repeated like scripture. Natalie also admitted she had received a poem too. "Sister Moon, you watched it burn. Did you ever wonder when it'd be your turn?" Authorities feared Emma might view her own sister as the final verse. Natalie was placed under federal protection. May 3rd. The Crimson Gallery updated. This time, all 6 canvases were full. Except one. Emma had added a new entry. Final piece, The Betrayer. Underneath was a new name, Natalie Sinclair. It was no longer about failed love. It was about the ultimate betrayal, family. And Emma wasn't running anymore. She was circling, preparing, poised to complete her masterpiece. Natalie's protection unraveling. A live-streamed horror twist. The public turning against the FBI. And Emma setting the stage for her final poem. Let me know if you want specific emotional tones, e.g., paranoia, dread, redemption, emphasized. The FBI moved Natalie Sinclair to a secure facility in upstate New York, far from public eyes. Her days were quiet, monitored, and routine. But even with agents posted outside her door, Natalie couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was near. And then the flowers came. A bouquet of black dahlias, delivered to the lobby of the safe house. No sender name, just a card with a handwritten line. Blood never forgets, and sisters never forgive. No one saw who dropped them off. Surveillance cameras glitched for exactly 37 seconds. Emma had breached the perimeter, not physically, but psychologically. She was watching. On May 8th, Emma updated her blog with a new post titled The Final Betrayal. But this time, it wasn't a poem. It was a manifesto. A scathing letter about family, abandonment, and how Natalie was the only one who knew her truth but chose to remain silent. She heard my sobs, I watched the bruises bloom, but she sang lullabies while I drowned in my room. The post spread like wildfire. Natalie, now dubbed the sister who ignored the signs, became a trending hashtag. People were turning. Emma had become a tragic antihero to thousands. And the FBI's failure to stop her was becoming a national embarrassment. A routine sweep of outgoing mail from a Chicago halfway house uncovered something unusual. A letter addressed to Emma Sinclair. The return address, Emma Sinclair. Inside was a short note, handwritten. I want you to see it. You owe me that much. Attached was a USB drive. When decrypted, it revealed rehearsal footage, Emma practicing a spoken word performance on an empty stage. No audience, just her and a spotlight. At the end of the video, she whispers, "Poetry is just murder that rhymes." On May 11th, at 9:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Emma live-streamed. The stream opened with Emma standing in a dimly lit warehouse. A chair behind her. Chains. A familiar red notebook in her hands. She read a poem aloud. They called me liar, but ink never lies. They called me monster, but monsters never cry. Then the camera panned. Natalie Sinclair, unconscious, bound to the chair. The stream cut to black. Panic erupted. Was it real? Was it staged? The public couldn't tell. But the FBI had no doubt. Emma had Natalie. And the end had begun. Within hours, a task force swept the city. IP traces, electromagnetic interference zones, and warehouse sweeps were all deployed. Meanwhile, true crime fanatics online dissected every frame of the live stream. One YouTube sleuth identified the graffiti tag in the background. It was unique to an abandoned textile mill on the outskirts of Detroit. Authorities raced there. They found the warehouse. They found the chair. They found the red notebook. But no Emma. No Natalie. Only a new message painted across the wall. You were too slow. So now she sleeps. In the wake of the stream, a disturbing trend emerged. Followers began posting their own Emma-style poems on social media, dark, violent, romanticized takes on revenge and trauma. One user even staged a mock art kidnapping of their partner and live-streamed it. The line between real horror and performative evil was blurring. The FBI issued a public warning. Emma Sinclair is not an artist. She is a dangerous individual. Any mimicry of her behavior is subject to federal investigation. But to many, she was more than that. She was a symbol of pain turned power. And that made her even more dangerous. Forensics finally cracked a clue hidden in the red ink found at the Detroit warehouse. It contained trace elements unique to a brand only sold at one art supply store in the Midwest. A sales receipt linked to a fake name was found, Lena Morrow. Surveillance footage from the store revealed Emma wearing a wig, sunglasses, and speaking in a low, distorted voice. But she had made one mistake. She signed for a coupon card, under the alias LM Sinclair. She was getting sloppy, or she wanted to be found. On May 15th, a 911 call came in from a truck stop in Ohio. A disoriented woman had stumbled into the gas station, barefoot, bruised, and mumbling poetry. It was Natalie Sinclair. She was alive. In the hospital, she recounted everything. The warehouse, the poems Emma made her read aloud, the recordings, the symbolic rituals. But Natalie said one thing that shook agents to the core. She said I was the last real word in her story. Once I speak, the book closes. Emma wasn't just writing poetry. She was writing an ending. Emma's blog updated for what she called the penultimate post. It began, I broke them gently like glass in my palm, o each shot a stanza, each scream a psalm. And ended, one poem remains, a one line unwritten, I when ink meets silence, then I'll be smitten. Digital experts traced the update to a motel in Kansas. Agents raided the location. Empty, but inside the room, drawn on the mirror in lipstick. Almost done. And on the bed, a wedding dress soaked in red dye. Emma's final performance was set. A post on an anonymous art forum declared, private event. Abandoned cathedral. June 1st. Witness the finale. The address led to a crumbling church in Missouri. FBI agents arrived undercover. Cameras hidden. Drones in the air. At midnight, a projector flickered to life. Emma appeared on screen, wearing the red-stained wedding dress. You loved my pain, but never my peace, so now I marry, the end I release. The screen cut to black. A blast shook the side of the church. Agents stormed the building. They found a recording studio. And one last notebook. The last poem, you must finish. Emma Sinclair was gone. Or was she? Shall I continue with parts 31 to 40, where the aftermath unfolds, public theories spiral, and a disturbing new theory arises? What if Emma planned all of this to live forever in someone else? The poem began appearing on bulletin boards, bathroom stalls, and classroom chalkboards. When the bells toll thrice, and the breath draws thin, where ink meets skin, is where I begin. It was Emma's voice. The same stylized structure. The same haunting cadence. Only this time, it wasn't published online. It was physically written, handwritten, and placed in public. Natalie stared at the verse tacked to the coffee shop board. Her hand trembled. Emma was close. Agent Donna had no doubt. Emma was setting the final stage. And it wasn't just symbolic anymore. It was personal. Emma's final poem would not be printed. It would be performed, like a twisted soliloquy. A park in D.C. was closed off due to a suspicious package. But when authorities approached, they didn't find a bomb. They found a marionette puppet with Emma's face drawn on it, crudely sketched, but unmistakable. Pinned to its chest was a folded poem. This puppet play is mine to write, with paper skin and string-bound fright, but the last act you will see will not involve the girl, it will be me. Forensic linguists confirmed it. Emma had evolved. Her style was shifting to theatrical metaphor. She wasn't just writing murder, she was choreographing it. Agent Donna intercepted chatter on dark forums referencing the murder of sound. One post read, "The silence that ends it all is the most poetic death." The team found an abandoned sound stage. Inside were dozens of speakers, microphones, and an eerie recording. It played Emma's voice reading a poem in reverse. Reversed, it said, "Do you hear me? Do you fear me? My voice is the only truth you'll know. When I go silent, you'll know I've won." Emma struck again. A tunnel wall near the Georgetown River was found covered in hand-drawn portraits of her victims. But not just their faces, their expressions moments before death. Natalie was among them, but with one difference. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth sewn shut with red thread. Attached beside it was a poem. To scream is vain, to fight is worse, the truth lies buried in the verse. Your face, my dear, will join the rest, when I have you, silent, Natalie reached a breaking point. Emma wasn't coming for her. Emma wanted her to run, to be prey, to be the muse. But Natalie had studied Emma her whole life. She would turn the stage. She began writing. A poem. The girl who bled ink ran from fate, but she forgot the hand that held the slate. She drew in shadows, carved in bone, but poems fall when truth is shown. She leaked the poem anonymously. It was bait, and Emma noticed. Emma responded with her own poem hours later. It was printed and posted on Natalie's apartment door. A sister writes in mimic's tone, but mimics break what's not their own. You want to end what I've begun? Then meet me where the ink runs. Coordinates led to an abandoned print shop downtown. The FBI set up surveillance. But Emma never showed. Only a mannequin stood in the center with Natalie's poem stapled to its chest. Agent Donna started suspecting something impossible. Someone inside the investigation was helping Emma. Her traps were too well informed. Her responses too precise. They checked poem drafts, paper types, ink, printers. One analyst, Agent Kayla Ruiz, had recently requested access to poetry linguistics. A search of her laptop revealed unsubmitted poem drafts, written in Emma's style. But Ruiz wasn't Emma. She was a fan. She'd been feeding Emma tips. Ruiz broke down under interrogation. I never met her. I just admired her work. She's not a killer. She's an artist. Her victims, she made them beautiful. She admitted to sending Emma tips on police strategy. How to delay, how to mislead. In exchange, Emma promised to include her in her final work. Agent Donna's voice trembled. What final work? Ruiz smiled. A poem only Natalie can read. Natalie returned to their childhood home. She found a letter hidden behind the loose floorboard in their shared bedroom. Dated 2 months ago. It read, "Where the whispers grew, and dreams were inked, where laughter died, and mirrors blinked." Meet me where you stopped believing in monsters. The basement. There, Natalie found photos of every victim, all arranged around a single chair, with Natalie's childhood photo at its center. Emma's tools weren't knives. They were calligraphy pens, modified to pierce. Every wound she left was deliberate, curved, and poetic. She had mailed Natalie a final gift. A pen. With a note. This pen ends the story. For one of us. Natalie turned to Agent Donna. Let her come. Emma's trial drew national attention. The courtroom overflowed with journalists, poets, and morbidly curious onlookers. Her charges, first-degree murder. Her defense, insanity or performance art. As the prosecution opened with Emma's most chilling poem, the audience collectively shivered. Each stanza had mapped out the crime with stunning clarity. But it wasn't just a confession. It was an artistic masterpiece. Poetry as evidence. Prosecutors read aloud Ode to a Final Breath, the poem where Emma detailed exactly how she ended Mark's life. Her language wasn't just revealing, it was orchestrated. Emma stared at her own words on screen as though detached. But when Natalie took the stand, Emma's demeanor changed. She finally looked haunted. Natalie stood before the court trembling. She described the days before Mark's death, Emma's growing obsession with poetry, and the day she found the final poem sealed with blood on her doorstep. She read it aloud, crying. Some jurors wept too. Emma watched in silence, lips parted, as if drinking in the pain. Just when it seemed the case was wrapped, a sealed envelope was discovered in Emma's storage unit. Inside, a poem titled The Mirror Must Speak. Handwritten, dated the day of her arrest. It referenced someone watching through glass and promised the final chorus belongs to the witness. Was it a threat to Natalie? Or a prophecy? The judge allowed Natalie to read it aloud in court. Each line described a mirror with eyes, a witness reflecting guilt, and an unnamed hand writing a new ending. As she reached the final stanza, the courtroom gasped. The last line was Natalie's childhood nickname. Only Emma could have known. Natalie fainted. Soon after, authorities discovered an underground online forum, Bleeding Verses. Thousands had gathered to celebrate Emma's poetry. Some were writing their own tribute stanzas. One post claimed, "She wrote the truth in blood. I'll write mine in action." Investigators realized Emma had inspired more than art. She'd sparked a movement. A woman was found murdered in another state, staged identically to Emma's original crime. A poem pinned to her chest. But Emma had been in custody. The killer? A former literature professor who believed Emma's work was transcendent justice. He mimicked her rhythm, structure, and the cruelty. Back in court, Emma released a statement. She denounced the murder, but smiled. "I didn't kill her," she said. "I simply wrote the template." Her attorneys tried to silence her, but the judge allowed it. Her fanbase grew. T-shirts with her poems sold online. The line between criminal and creator blurred. Natalie moved out of the city, hoping for peace. But the poems followed. One arrived etched into her mirror. Another was burned into her lawn. She contacted the FBI, who warned, "You're a symbol now. And symbols draw shadows." Natalie considered changing her name. But one part of her didn't want to run. In the closing scene, Natalie sat before a camera, reading a poem she had written. It was a response to Emma. One line echoed Emma's original voice, but it was reclaimed. "I am not your mirror. I am the flame that scorched it." Emma sat in her cell watching on a smuggled phone, smiling. And as Natalie finished, her lights flickered. A knock echoed at the door.